Hardly missed dinner. Okay, but John won't sign. Okay, how come?
Integrity.
Okay, it's integrity. You know, you go, oh, would you like this guy? You know, I think we'd all like this guy. You're going, wait a minute, John, you got your wife out there, you've got children, they now, well, you know, they're almost double digits on number of children. They have no support. And finally, while John is in prison, he hears that his wife is dead. And he now learns that the government, his children have come to visit, the government is going to divide up his family. And they're going to be wards of the state, you know, where you'd say they're going into like foster homes or going into some kind of adoption agencies. And the family's going to be split up. Okay, tell me, will he sign?
No way.
Okay, he's not going to sign. Okay, right away you go, well, who's he related to? And I go, well, JosephSmith. You ever thought that, you know, when we pass on our characteristics, you know, obviously my kid's semi-short. Okay, you know, but, you know, you go, well, you pass on your physical characteristics, but do you also pass on, you know, these wonderful traits that you have developed? Well, okay. In the meantime, you know, the question is, what's going to happen to his family? For John Lathrop, very fortunate for him, he had beautiful daughters. So, you know, if you're going to have kids, make sure they're just the cutest ones you've ever seen. And these beautiful daughters now come to the warden of this Newgate prison. And the warden was a bishop in the church. And as they come to him, they now plead with him and say, please let our father go, that we do not want to be split up as a family. In other words, mom is dead, we need help. And this warden, he actually likes John. And he likes John because John isn't like this wave of the sea. John actually knows, you know, who he is, where he came from. You see what I'm doing? Okay. Well done, that good and faithful. You know, I hope you're all starting to think your patriarchal blessings. Okay. And so these beautiful young girls, they say, let him go. The warden goes, I can't. And he goes, the only way I could let your father go. He said, he's known by royalty. In other words, I can't let him walk on these streets. But if you would take your father to a little-known colony called America, we will let him go free. Okay, so suddenly, okay. Notice, John Lathrop is not on the Mayflower, which is the first kind of ship from England to America, you know, with settlers. But he does come in the 1630s. And he sails aboard a ship called the Griffin. Now, aboard this ship, welcome, okay, aboard the ship, he is the only man that has a Bible. And one night, so you've got, you know, all these great, you know, kind of pilgrims, voyagers heading to America, but of them, he's the only one that brought a Bible aboard ship. Okay, isn't that interesting? You know, you wonder, when you pack to go on vacations, do you take your scriptures? Okay. Okay, so he has a Bible, and one night as he's reading, he's got a candle, and some hot tallow from the candle now falls onto the pages of his Bible, and it literally burns holes through some of the pages. He asks the ship captain for paper. He puts the paper in, and he writes verbatim every word that was missing. Okay. Now, John and his family will settle in a state called Massachusetts. They're in Massachusetts in a small little community called Barnstable. John Lathrop had a church. He said, I will never claim that I can baptize you, ordain you to anything. I do not believe that authority to act in the name of God is upon the earth. But I would like to teach you about the Bible, and I'd like to teach you about Jesus Christ. Today, in that little town of Barnstable, Massachusetts, there's a museum. And the museum's all about John Lathrop. You can go in there, you can see his Bible now under glass. You can see the pages that had been burned by the hot tallow from the candle. Okay, so there's our man, John.
Does the church own this museum?
The what?
Does our church own the museum?
No, our church doesn't own the museum. But, okay, this hour, I'd like you to keep thinking him, and let's see who's related to him. You would say JosephSmith. And And Brigham Young said about the prophet Joseph Smith and his ancestry. Brigham Young said that ancestry, you could trace it literally all the way back to Adam and Eve. And that the Lord has watched over that ancestry and literally preparing the ancestry then for the restoration. You know, the man who will bring back the plane of precious things. And I think you could probably see, right, how the Lord's preparing this John Lathrop. Who else is related to Lathrop? Well, if it's Joseph Smith, then name a brother. Hiram Smith. And, you know, Alvin Smith, Don Carlos Smith, you know, William Smith. Okay, so all the Smiths. And, okay, at one point, Joseph F. Smith was asked, and by the way, he served a mission here to Hawaii. Okay, he was asked, what do you think the last name of Adam and Eve was? And he said, oh, I wish all questions that came to me was that simple. He said, it's Adam and Eve Smith, of course. And, you know, when he was asked, you know, he then said, well, how can you tell if a man is fallen? And he'd say, well, you know, they have another name. Look, and you'd say, obviously it's a joke, but nevertheless, you'd say the Smiths then come through John Lathrop. I'm going to just follow Hiram Smith's family line, and you'd say Hiram Smith comes from John Lathrop. Hiram Smith had a son named Joseph Smith, but what's his middle name? Fielding. Good. Joseph Fielding Smith. Okay? I'm going to tell you about him, and kind of what I'm trying to reinforce is heritage. Okay. Joseph F. Smith.
Wait, who's Hiram Smith?
So Hiram Smith is the brother of Joseph. Okay, and then Hiram's brother, or Joseph's brother Hiram Smith has a son named Joseph F. Smith. He always went by F. Okay. You'd say for Joseph F. Smith, when his father Hiram died, Joseph F. was 6 years old. And his mother literally lifts him up to see his father in the death grip as he's dead there in the mansion house. And his mother, Mary Fielding Smith, says to her son, never forget your father. He died for the truth. Now you must live for it. For Joseph F. Smith, a pretty interesting young man, he takes his mother, goes with his mother to Utah. He pushed and pulled oxen, and at one point he was asked, how was your childhood? And his comment was, I don't know. He goes, I think I was born an adult. In other words, I had so many things that I needed to do. Well, okay, you'd say by the time he's 21, he served 2 missions. 2 to these islands, 1 to England, and the story we're going to pick him up, he's 28 years old. He's well over 6 feet tall. He's a really big kid, and he's looking for a job. And you'd say the goal of the 19th century man was always to be a farmer. But in his case, he's applying for a job at the church history historical department. And when he applies for a job, they said, well, what we have for you, that you could have a job, today we would describe it like a Xerox machine. He was not good enough with shorthand, they called it then Pittman shorthand, to take the letters from the lips of general authority, but he was good enough to be able to copy the letters and put them into the files. And so, you know, he's kind of like your Xerox machine. And you'd say, well, why would a guy that could be a farmer, why would he take a dead-end job? And the answer, he asked, can I stay after hours? I'd like to read about my father, Hiram Smith, and his brother, Joseph Smith. So what you've got, he's a big guy sitting at the desk, you know, put it in the file, and then you'd say at night, everybody's gone, he's, oh wow, that's great, and reading. Okay, he's 28 years old, he's a high councilman in the Salt Lake State, he's now at work, married, he has no children, he's at work, and suddenly Brigham Young is passing by his desk, and when Brigham Young passes by his desk, he says, young man, what is your name? And he said, "My name is Joseph Fielding Smith." At which point Brigham said, "I didn't ask you that. I asked you, who are your parents?" Okay, it's very taken back. He goes, "My parents are deceased. My father was Hiram Smith, and my mother, Mary Fielding." At which point Brigham became very emotional and said, "I have a blessing for you from your father. Would you like it?" Okay, how come he didn't get a blessing from his father before? Okay, Dad dies when he's 6. Okay, and so he goes, "I have a blessing for you from your father. Would you like it?" Well, of course he would like it. He puts down his, they had quills back then as he's writing. And suddenly Brigham Young now places his hands on his head. He not only gives him, like a father's blessing, a blessing of comfort, but he ordains him to be a member of the 12, and he places him in the first presidency of the church. Okay, how come?
That's crazy.
Okay, all right, so wait a minute.
He
Okay.
must have been piercing the veil.